What if the most important journeys are not the ones toward the spotlight, but the ones that lead back home? As winter settles across cities and the calendar turns toward reunion, one journey quietly captures the imagination of millions. Not a red carpet arrival, not a film premiere, but a return. A daughter going back to where her story first began. If you are still watching, subscribe. Let's get the story started as the world of your favorite celebrity unfolds.
Stay tuned.
The news spreads softly at first, then like wildfire across timelines and fan circles. Shen Yue is traveling home for Chinese New Year. A simple statement on the surface. Yet in the world of modern celebrity, no movement is ever just a movement. Every ticket becomes a clue. Every schedule a narrative. Every holiday a chapter waiting to be interpreted. Airports during this season carry a different emotion. Luggage is heavier with gifts. Faces are brighter with anticipation. The air itself feels filled with memory. For many, Chinese New Year is not a date but a feeling, a migration of hearts back to their roots. And here stands a young woman whose life has transformed under the gaze of cameras, now stepping into the stage, returning home, sitting at a familiar table, hearing voices that knew her long before the world did. A cinematic voice might whisper that fame travels fast, but nostalgia travels deeper. Fans imagine the scene. A quiet arrival, perhaps a cap pulled low, a simple coat, a small smile when greeted by family. The kind of smile that does not belong to an actress performing, but to a daughter arriving. Yet the modern world rarely allows a single narrative. Another question rises almost immediately, floating through comment sections and fan forums. Will Dylan Wang follow? The question itself becomes a story. Not because it demands an answer, but because it reveals longing. Audiences do not only watch careers anymore. They follow emotional arcs. They invest in connections, real or rumored, because stories feel warmer when shared between two people. But consider the deeper layer. Chinese New Year is about reunion, about origins, about the people who knew you before your name became searchable across continents. It is a time when status softens and roles return to their simplest form.
Child.
Friend. Relative. Neighbor. In such a space, the noise of speculation feels distant. Perhaps that is the true contrast that fascinates the public. On one side, the global stage with flashing lights and endless discussion. On the other, a quiet home where conversations revolve around health, food, and whether you have been resting enough. The narrator might slow here, letting the warmth settle. Because beyond the question of who follows whom lies something more human. The reminder that even rising stars need grounding. Even celebrated faces need places where they are not performing. Where success is not measured in ratings, but in whether you finished another serving at dinner. Meanwhile, outside that private world, the internet builds possibilities. A shared city, a similar timeline, a hopeful coincidence. Each theory constructed like a bridge between imagination and reality. But real life is rarely edited like a drama. It unfolds in ordinary rhythms. A morning tea, a family photo, fireworks echoing in the distance, laughter over stories from childhood. If this were filmed as a documentary, the camera would not chase rumors. It would linger on small details. Steam rising from hot dishes. Red decorations on doorways. The comfort of familiar streets walked again after long absence. Because sometimes the most powerful narrative is not about romance or speculation. It is about return. About remembering who you were before the world told you who you are. And somewhere in that quiet return, Shen Yue is not a headline, not a trending topic, just someone welcomed back by people who never needed her autograph. As for whether another figure will appear in that story, the future holds its own timing. Some chapters are shared, others are personal, and some are meaningful precisely because they are not broadcast. The closing voice of a documentary would say this gently. In an era where every movement is tracked and every interaction analyzed, going home remains one of the few journeys that still belongs to the heart first and the audience second. Fireworks bloom. A new year begins. And for a moment, the world watches not a celebrity, but a young woman reconnecting with where her life first learned to dream. And perhaps that is the real story worth telling. And what happens after the fireworks fade and the night grows quiet? The celebration does not end when the sky goes dark. It settles into softer moments. The kind that rarely make headlines but shape the heart all the same. Morning arrives slowly during the New Year season. Sunlight slips through familiar windows. The scent of traditional dishes lingers from the night before. In homes across the country, families wake not to alarms, but to the gentle rhythm of togetherness. Somewhere in that calm, a young woman who spends most of her year on sets and in studios wakes in a room filled with memories. Perhaps the furniture has not changed much. Perhaps the walls still hold traces of childhood dreams once whispered in the dark. These spaces remember who you were before the world applauded who you became. The narrator's voice would grow softer here, reflective, almost intimate. Because returning home is also a quiet confrontation with time. You see how much has changed and how much has stayed the same. A favorite meal still tastes familiar. A relative still asks if you're eating well. A neighbor still remembers you as the student who once hurried out each morning with books in hand. Fame cannot rewrite those memories. It only adds new chapters. Outside that peaceful circle, the world continues its guessing game. Screens glow with questions. Fans wonder about connections, about possibilities, about whether two paths might cross again during a season known for reunion. But inside a home filled with New Year warmth, speculation feels far away. Real conversations happen. Real laughter rises. Stories are retold for the 100th time because tradition gives them new life. A documentary lens would linger on these details. Hands preparing food together. Elders sharing advice. The small rituals repeated year after year that quietly say, you belong here no matter how far you travel. And perhaps, in a quiet moment between celebrations, there is reflection. Gratitude for the journey. Gratitude for the people who remain constant while everything else evolves. The truth about life in the public eye is rarely dramatic. It is a balance. A dance between visibility and privacy. Between the world that watches and the world that truly knows you. As the New Year days continue, messages arrive from friends, colleagues, and yes, perhaps from those whose names the public likes to pair together. Warm wishes. Simple hopes for health and success. Nothing cinematic. Nothing staged. Just human connection expressed in ordinary words. And maybe that is enough. Because the real magic of this season is not in who appears beside you in a photograph, but in the feeling that no matter how far your career carries you, there is a place that calls you back simply because you are you. The closing narration would not end with a revelation. It would end with a feeling. A reminder that while the world searches for romantic plotlines and dramatic twists, life often writes quieter, deeper stories. Stories about roots, about gratitude, about returning to the people who loved you before the world learned your name. The lanterns dim, the celebration slow. A new year stretches ahead like an unwritten script. And somewhere between the noise of public curiosity and the silence of private joy, a simple truth remains. Going home is sometimes the most meaningful journey of all.